like I know the lighting is really weird on this, but just please bear with me, okay? So I will do the intro again. So I was saying that I watched this video by this girl Gracie Draskovic, and she talks about how being like quote unquote the nice girl, following all the rules and stuff, being overly kind can actually be a real detriment to your mental well-being, your psyche, your heart, like everything, especially over long periods of time. And she says how those rules were actually made by the people who benefit from them. And like we are taught all these things that make you seem like the bigger person, but it's really a detriment to you. Anyway, that's just like the preface. So that made me think about how what was I saying? Like, I agree with her in that being overly kind, I forget what I was saying, but whatever. Being overly kind, not even overly kind. Giving of the heart without expecting anything in return can often be used in a bad way. You see what I'm saying? Even though that in itself is not bad, like within the right context, it will be greatly appreciated. However, like the context being other people is very, very small. So like maybe 1% can properly appreciate and return that. But the 99% is like a big no and it flops. That's my point. So anyway, that brought me to reflecting on a Bible study I had, because that's often a religious value, is to give unto others and not expecting anything in return. Okay? And so as I say, yes. So in that Bible study, we were talking about how if you gotta lend money to somebody, right? And then so all the people were saying how they're gonna lend money to somebody, but they're gonna expect it back in return, right? And when it got to me, I said, I only lend money that I can afford to lose. So I lend the money, but I do not necessarily expect it back, okay? And I justified it by saying I will only lend money that I can afford to lose. So for example, if you need to run to the store for and you need $5 for a juice, okay? And you're like, you come up to me, you say, hey, can you spot me $5 for this juice? I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. That means like if I will lend you the money, and that means that if that $5 never gets returned to me, I'm fine. My bank account is fine. I can still buy groceries, do whatever I need to do, and buy a little ice cream if I want. Then I will lend you the money. If those conditions are not met, I will not lend you the money. Right. So, what was I getting into that? Yeah, so I've like more like up till now, I've operated in that mindset, give unto others, do not expect anything back. However, big caveat, that starts to get really, really, really tiring when people do not pour back into you. So you may give without expecting anything in return. However, you should be receiving some kind of reciprocity, whether that be in acknowledgement, in presence, in somebody doing somebody doing something nice to you back. Not that it's a requirement, but just so that you don't feel like you're over here giving out all this kindness, love, positivity, and it's almost like nobody cares, right? Because that's how I was feeling. I was like, well, and nobody cares. Like for example, in this place I used to work, they said one of their values was to not sit on gratitude. Like if somebody helped you out that day, you was about to spill your tray, and they came up and studied it for you, you're supposed to say thank you, even if you had to run off because you're busy trying to get to class, right? Even if you had to run off, come back and say, hey, so and so, I really appreciate you. You studied the tray, you held the tray steady for me, so I didn't make a whole mess in the cafeteria. Thank you so much for being there and spotting me in that moment, right? And they'll be like, you're welcome, da da da, right? So our thing was to not sit on gratitude. So if you see like, oh my God, this person did such a good job distributing drinks today, or they did a great job being efficient with orders, or they did a great job breaking down this concept. you're supposed to say at some point, like, hey, I was so grateful, like, address it at some point. Got it. Sorry, my nose is like. So anyway, I kind of had some problems with that, but that's not what this video is about. Oh, wait. I lose track of what I'm saying sometimes. So I was saying not to sit on gratitude. Oh, yes. So even after that job, during that job and even after, I would still do those things because it would just come to mind, like, my old coworker, and I would sometimes tell them, oh, hey, like, I heard such and such, and I know you're gonna do great. They're like, oh, thank you so much. Some people, they can receive that, and then you feel good because they're like, oh, yeah, I love them and they love me back. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, somebody received what you said. You get a thank you in return. Not that I do it for the thank you, but it's like, I feel happy, they feel happy. And I mean it when I say it. I don't just do it for fun, right? But also, there's people who cannot receive it properly, right? There's people who sometimes, when you are like, pure, genuine, sincerely not doing anything with any gain at all, some people's like, hold up, what's the gain? Or they just get uncomfortable and they just cannot reciprocate it. Some people don't know what it's like to do something from the heart, right? So it's like I used to wonder, or they don't know. Yeah, so some people do not know how to receive it, right? So I used to feel bad sometimes when people would not receive it well. When I truly see them, I'm like, thank you so much for this. Thank you that you did this. Thank you that you did this, and this, right? And some people would be like, oh my God, thank you. And other people would be like, okay, right. And I used to feel like, wait, like, did I do something wrong? Was I being disrespectful? Did I make the person uncomfortable? Yeah, probably. But I was like, wait, there's nothing wrong. I was just saying I'm grateful for them, and I see their contribution. And it's also the things, like, even when people think they do small things, they have a big impact, right? Even when someone helps you in a small way, say you're carrying a plant into the doorway, right? And somebody sees you, like, somebody safe, of course, I don't mean, somebody sees you and they help you carry it, and you say, oh my gosh, thank you so much, and be like, no problem, you're welcome, right? Not everybody can do that. It's because I'm assuming, if you're like me, the capacity to give must also equal the person's capacity to receive. Because if you are giving, right, and you give like this much, right, but the other person's container is like this much, it's not going to match. You see what I'm saying? It's gonna be like, I don't know how to hold this. What is this? What is all this? You know what I'm saying? It's gonna be like error, does not compute. So I used to get bitter. Well, at least up till very, very recently, I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not sending people all this like undue kindness, right? Because it would just come into my head. Like, also that's how I was raised. If you know Caribbean mothers, that's how I was raised. Like, you must say thank you. Like, even when it was quote unquote unnecessary, I was like, bro, I'm grateful. Like, don't they know that? And she's like, no, you must like do a phone call, or you must do a letter, or whatever, right? So it's kind of ingrained into me too. But anyway, I got what's it called, irritated, and I was like, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore, because it also takes from me to express those feelings in ways that other people can understand, whether it's writing, whether it's in a phone call. Like, you gotta formulate that feeling into words that another person can then understand. You see what I'm saying? Like, it takes work, like it takes mental work for me to do that stuff. So since I said, sometimes it's just really not worth it, most of the time actually, I said, let me stop giving out all that sweet, kind, gushy stuff for free. And actually, yeah, that's it. That's it. I just said, let me stop giving it out for free. And then also, number 2 is that some people, they see this like a sincere person, and they think you're somebody to play with. They think like, oh yeah, here's somebody I can chop up. Like, here, there's a little sheep. And I could take the sheep wool and I can make clothing or whatever. You see what I'm saying? So, you know what? No, that should be like a part 2. Maybe I'll leave this as one, and that should be a part 2. But I'm just saying, like, if you're ever someone that is tired of giving, or you feel like you're over giving and it's not being matched, not being reciprocated, you have permission. Like, give yourself permission to stop. It's okay. Even though we say to give without looking for anything in return, it is still true that you should be getting some kind of matched acknowledgement, because you're not, just like I'm saying for myself, I am not a overflowing fountain, you know? If you follow astrology, right? I'm Aquarius. That's the water bearer. So, it kind of makes sense. I'm used to pouring into others, right? But who's pouring into me? So I'm just saying, for anyone out there for whom this has been a problem, it's okay to not give and give and give and give and give. If you feel like you're not getting it back, if you feel like it's draining from you more than giving to you, more than being reciprocated, right? Cause that's what one of the coworkers had told me one time. Cause I was like, I'm so tired of this job. Da, 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 da. And I was telling him, like, I give and give and give and give. I give and give and give and give, right? And he was telling me, well, do they give back to you? Like, the people I was working with, he was like, do they give back to you? And I was like, And he was like, yeah, just like give me your answer, right? Because also, like, when you know, that's how you know when you know something is for you. It's not only that when you pour into it, it takes effort from you, like, but you genuinely want to do it. It's also that that thing gives back to you. That's how a lot of people know that a certain job is for them. That even if it's hard and they must give of themselves, the job itself or the people they work with, just by being themselves, also pour back into them. So in any case, it's at the very minimum an equal exchange. You see what I'm saying? That's part of how you know whether something is, like, right for you, at least in one sense, at least, in my case. That's what I feel like. Yeah, so I didn't tell you the specifics because it's something that can be applied in a broad concept. Anyway, if you're someone who needs to hear that today, that's your permission.